Left to freeze with a cruel note, a baby's fate seemed sealed. But one biker's choice sparked a dangerous lie, a hidden legacy, and a love that defied two violent worlds. The truth was colder than the snow. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The snow was coming down hard that night, the kind of wet, heavy flakes that stick to leather and freeze solid. Marcus Grinder Kovac was the last to leave the clubhouse, the rumble of his Harley long gone from the empty lot. He was just checking the locks, a habit from 20 years as a sergeant at arms for the Hells Angels Charter. That's when he heard it, not a cry, more like a weak, tired whimper swallowed by the wind. He followed the sound to the big dumpster out back, and there she was, a bundle of pink blankets tucked right up against the brick wall like someone hoped the trash would take her. Her face was blue with cold. Pinned to the blanket was a note, the ink smudged by melted snow, 3 words written in a frantic, slashing hand, "No one's child." Marcus wasn't a soft man. He'd seen violence, dealt it, lived it. But this was a different kind of cruelty. It lit a fire in his gut, hot and furious. He didn't hesitate. He scooped the tiny, ice-cold bundle up, tucked her inside his leather cut, against the worn denim and old t-shirt underneath, and gunned his bike back to the only home he had. The clubhouse erupted. Big men with beards and tattoos, who'd just been drinking whiskey and playing cards, suddenly didn't know what to do with their hands. It was Paul, the wiry, smart one they called Doc, who took charge. He warmed bottles, checked her tiny fingers and toes, while Marcus sat rigid on a bar stool watching. "She's okay, Marcus," Paul said finally, "just cold and hungry." A prospect brought a box of diapers from the all-night gas station. Someone else found an old, clean t-shirt to use as a blanket. They argued about what to do, call the cops, an orphanage. Marcus hadn't said a word for an hour. Then he looked at the little girl, now sleeping in a nest of towels on the pool table, her cheeks finally a normal color. He looked at the note, now crumpled on the bar. "No," he said, his voice a low growl. "They left her to die. She's ours now, she's mine." And that was that. The club had a new mascot. They named her Stella because someone said it meant star, and she'd been found in the dark. Marcus became her shadow. He traded his usual bar stool for a rocking chair. He learned to make formula one-handed. He strapped a tiny helmet on her and took her for slow rides around the compound when the weather was warm, her small hands gripping his belt loops. The years turned. Stella wasn't a club mascot, she was the club's princess. At 5, she was teaching hard-faced bikers how to properly color inside the lines. At 10, she was beating them at poker, her innocent face a perfect bluff. She called Marcus Papa Grind, a name that would have gotten anyone else a broken nose, but from her, it made the big man's eyes crinkle. There were light-hearted moments, plenty of them. Like the time Stella, now 12, decided the clubhouse needed a woman's touch. She dragged David, a 300-pound enforcer, to the store to buy throw pillows and scented candles. The sight of David, tattoos covering his arms, carefully comparing lavender versus vanilla air fresheners, had the whole club in stitches for a week. The pillows ended up being used as ammunition in a massive, feather-filled war that destroyed the living room. Stella grew up smart and tough, with a kindness that seemed at odds with her surroundings. She could field strip a carburetor with Marcus and then quote Shakespeare for her homework. And as she bloomed into a young woman, the dynamic shifted. The charged moments came quietly. Marcus would catch himself watching her laugh, a strange, protective ache in his chest that had nothing to do with the club and everything to do with the man he'd buried deep inside. He'd find reasons to touch her shoulder, to smooth her hair, gestures that lasted a heartbeat too long. Stella, for her part, looked at him not just as her savior, but as the constant, rugged center of her world. There was a tension there, unspoken and electric, a magnetic pull they both felt, but neither dared name. Marcus's empire, the club's business, never stopped. He was a respected, feared man in their world. Runs happened, meetings with other chapters, deals were made, but Stella was always the line he would cross. She was kept separate, clean. She went to a good school on the other side of town, paid for by club money, but with a cover story about a trust fund. She knew what Marcus was, but he made sure she never saw it. Everything changed on Stella's 18th birthday. The clubhouse was decked out, a huge cake in the shape of a motorcycle on the table. Stella was blowing out the candles when the door crashed open, not the cops. Worse, it was James, the president of a rival charter from 2 states over, a man with icy eyes and a reputation for brutality. He wasn't there for a social call. He was flanked by 4 of his own men. "Marcus," James said, his voice slick as oil, "we need to talk about the girl." The room went dead silent. Marcus stepped in front of Stella. "You don't look at her, you don't talk about her." James smiled, a thin, cruel line. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to give you a history lesson about the Luciano family." The name hit the room like a shockwave. The Lucianos were old-world mafia, powerful, ruthless. 17 years ago, James continued, his eyes locked on Stella, Antonio Luciano's only son was killed in a botched deal. The son had a wife, a baby girl. Luciano blamed the wife's family, the Rossis, for the death, swore to wipe them out and take the child as his own, to raise as a Luciano. The Rossis were small time. They knew they couldn't win. Marcus's blood ran cold. He felt Stella's hand on his back. "The Rossi daughter," James said, pointing a finger at Stella. "Her name is Stella. It's Elena Rossi. Her parents did the only thing they could think of to save her from being raised by the monster who murdered her grandfather. They faked her death, but first they left her somewhere they thought no one would ever connect to the Lucianos. Somewhere so far outside their world it would be the last place they'd look. A biker bar. They pinned a note on her, hoping you'd read it literally. No one's child. They meant she was nobody's property, not theirs to keep, not Luciano's to claim. A warning to keep her hidden, anonymous. They didn't leave her to freeze. They left her to disappear." The truth was a physical blow. Marcus remembered the note, the frantic writing. He'd seen it as rejection. It was a desperate act of love. "Why are you telling me this now?" Marcus snarled. "Because Antonio Luciano is dying," James said, "and on his deathbed he wants his heir. His men have been looking for years. They just found out. They know she's here. They're coming for her, Marcus, tonight, and they will burn this whole club to the ground to get her." James tossed a grainy, aged photograph onto the pool table. It showed a younger, terrified-looking couple holding a baby in a pink blanket. The woman had Stella's eyes. "I'm telling you," James said, "because your war with the Lucianos is bad for everyone's business. Hand her over, and maybe your club survives." The room erupted in shouts, hands reaching for weapons, but Marcus held up a fist. Silence fell. He turned slowly to look at Stella. Her face was pale, tears streaking her makeup. She was looking at the photograph. "Is it true?" she whispered. "It doesn't matter," Marcus said, his voice rough. "You hear me? It doesn't change anything. You're mine. I said it then, and I say it now." But the fortress walls had been breached. The past had come roaring in. Within an hour, scouts reported black SUVs circling the neighborhood. The Lucianos weren't waiting. "We can't fight them head-on, grind," Paul said, checking the clip on his pistol. "They've got numbers, resources." "Then we don't fight," Marcus said, his mind racing. "We hide her." "Where?" David asked. "They know everything now." Marcus looked at Stella, a plan forming, desperate and dangerous. The one place a mafia prince would never think to look for his precious heir, the heart of a rival's territory. "We take her to the Lakeside Charter." The room exploded again in protest. The Lakeside Angels were their fiercest rivals, led by a man named Daniel Reaper Cross. There was bad blood, a decade of it. "It's suicide," someone yelled. "It's the only move he won't expect," Marcus roared back. "Reaper hates the Lucianos more than he hates me. He lost his brother to them. He'll protect her just to spit in Antonio's eye, but he'll only do it if I give him something he wants." "What?" Stella asked, her voice trembling. Marcus looked at her, his heart breaking. "Me, I go to him. I surrender myself to his charter. I become his property, a show of good faith. In exchange, he gives you sanctuary, protects you with his whole club until this blows over, or we can figure something else out." "No," Stella cried, grabbing his arm. "Papa, no, you can't." He took her face in his hands, the leather of his gloves soft against her skin. The chemistry between them, always simmering, now boiled over in this moment of raw fear and sacrifice. His thumbs wiped her tears. "Listen to me, Stella. Elena, whoever you are my daughter, my life. This club is my empire and I won't give it up. But you are my soul. I left you out in the cold once because I didn't understand. I will never let that happen again, even if it means walking into hell. He kissed her forehead, a long, tender press of his lips. It was a father's kiss, but it carried the weight of every unsaid word, every charged glance they'd ever shared. Paul, you're in charge here. Fortify. David, you're with me and Stella. We ride fast and quiet. Now. They slipped out the back as the first SUV screeched to a halt in front of the clubhouse. The cold night air bit as they mounted their bikes, Stella clinging to Marcus's back just like she had as a little girl. The ride to lakeside territory was a blur of neon and shadow, every set of headlights a potential threat. The lakeside clubhouse was a fortress by the water. They were met at the gate by armed, hostile men. Marcus got off his bike, hands raised. I need to see Reaper. Tell him Grinder is here, and I'm bringing him a war with the Lucianos. They were taken inside at gunpoint, not as guests, but as prisoners. The lakeside clubhouse was bigger, cleaner, but the air was just as thick with tension and mistrust. Daniel Reaper Cross sat on a throne-like chair at the head of the room. He was older than Marcus, with steel-gray hair and eyes that held no warmth. Grinder, Reaper said, the word dripping with contempt. You've got 5 seconds to explain why I shouldn't hang your cut on my wall and throw the rest of you in the lake. Marcus pushed Stella slightly behind him. The Lucianos are coming. Tonight, they're coming for her. He nodded at Stella. She's Elena Rossi, Antonio Luciano's granddaughter. A murmur swept through the lakeside men. Reaper's expression didn't change, but his knuckles whitened on the arms of his chair. The Luciano name was a curse here, too. And why is that my problem? Reaper asked quietly. "'Cause I'm giving her to you," Marcus said, his voice echoing in the silent room. "I'm giving you me. My charter backs off from the West Side routes, permanently. You get the territory you've wanted for 10 years, and you get to tell Antonio Luciano that his precious heir is under the protection of the man who vowed to kill every last one of his kind. I become your prospect. I do whatever you say. My club doesn't retaliate. All of that in exchange for one thing: you keep her safe, here. In your fortress, until the Luciano threat is gone." The offer hung in the air, shocking everyone, even David, who stood beside him. Stella let out a choked sob. "Papa, do." Reaper studied Marcus for a long minute. Then he looked at Stella, really looked at her. He saw the fear, but also the strength in her posture, the way she stood close to Marcus. He saw a girl, not a prize. "You do that," Reaper finally said. "Give up your freedom, your pride for her." "I found her in a snowstorm with a note calling her trash," Marcus said, never breaking eye contact. "She is the best thing I have ever done. My pride means nothing." A flicker of something, respect, maybe passed through Reaper's icy eyes. He stood up. "The deal is this. You Grinder become my property, you do the worst jobs, you take the beatings from any of my men who still hold a grudge. You have no vote, no voice. For 1 year, the girl stays here as my guest. She is not to be touched, not by you, not by my men, not by anyone. My charter becomes her shield. If the Lucianos want her, they come through me. After a year, if we're all still alive, we renegotiate." It was a harder deal than Marcus expected, a year of hell, but he didn't hesitate. "Done." "No," Stella screamed, rushing forward. 2 lakeside men caught her arms. "You can't, I won't let you." Marcus turned to her. The charged moment was back, amplified by desperation. He cupped her face again, ignoring the guards holding her. You will let me do this, because this is how I protect what's mine. You live, Stella, you live a full life. That's the only thing that matters now." He leaned in, his lips a breath away from hers. It wasn't a kiss, but it was more intimate than one. A promise, a goodbye. "Be strong, baby girl." Reaper gave a sharp nod. "Take him to the prospect room, get him some rags to wear. The girl gets the upstairs guest room, post 2 men on her door at all times, and somebody get on the horn. I want every able-bodied brother here, armed. The wolves are at the door." The separation was brutal. Marcus was stripped of his cut, his colors, the most sacred thing to a biker. He was given dirty jeans and a plain white t-shirt. He was shoved into a small, windowless room with a cot, the door locked from the outside. He was now less than a member. He was owned. Stella was taken to a clean, simple bedroom upstairs. It had a lock on the inside, but she heard the 2 men settle outside her door. She sank onto the bed, hugging herself, the reality crashing down. Her whole life was a lie. Her parents weren't monsters who abandoned her. They were heroes who gave her up. And Marcus had just sold himself into slavery for her. Downstairs, Reaper's club mobilized. It was a well-oiled machine. Men with rifles took positions on the roof. Others monitored police scanners. Reaper himself called a contact. "The package is here," Reaper said into the phone. "Tell Luciano if he wants a war on two fronts, tonight's the night." Meanwhile, back at Marcus's clubhouse, the Lucianos had made their first move. A black SUV had pulled up, and a man in an expensive suit got out. Paul met him at the door, a shotgun held casually at his side. "We're here for the girl," the suit said. "Elena Rossi, you will turn her over." "Don't know any Elena," Paul said, his voice steady. "You've got the wrong place." The suit smiled. "We know Grinder took her. We know she's here. Mr. Luciano is prepared to be generous, or he is prepared to be thorough." Before Paul could answer, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It was a single word from Marcus's new, confiscated phone, sent before they took it, Lakeside. Paul looked back at the suit. "Like I said, wrong place, she's not here, and if you try to come in and look, you'll find we're very thorough too." A standoff began. The Lucianos didn't want a full-on assault yet. They were watching, waiting, but they wouldn't wait long. The first days at Lakeside were torture. For Stella, it was a gilded cage. She was fed, kept safe, but the silence was awful. She missed the loud, messy warmth of her own clubhouse. She missed Marcus with a physical ache. For Marcus, it was pure humiliation. He was put to work scrubbing toilets, cleaning grease pits, hauling trash. The younger Lakeside members, whose brothers had been hurt in past conflicts with Marcus's charter, took special pleasure in tripping him, spilling filth on him, calling him names. He took it all in silence, his eyes always checking the stairs to where Stella was kept. One afternoon, a week in, Stella couldn't stand it anymore. She waited until one of her guards went for a coffee. She slipped out and went downstairs to the garage where she knew Marcus would be working. He was on his knees, scrubbing tire marks off the concrete floor, his back to her. His hands were raw. Seeing him like that, broken and doing slave labor, broke something in her. "Papa grind," she whispered. He stiffened, then slowly turned. His face was tired, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. "Stella, you shouldn't be down here." "I had to see you." She knelt in front of him, ignoring the dirty water. She took his injured hands in hers. The touch sent a current through both of them. It was care, it was love, it was something more tangled and deep. "Look what they're doing to you." "It's nothing," he said, but he didn't pull his hands away. He let her trace the lines of his palms, the new scrapes and bruises. "Are you eating? Are they treating you okay?" "They ignore me mostly. It's you I'm worried about." Her eyes searched his. "This can't be the way. There has to be another plan." "The plan is you live," he said simply. Their faces were close. The chemistry was a living thing in the garage air. Thick with the smell of oil and cleaner, he could see the young woman she'd become, the child he'd saved now looking at him with an emotion that made his heart hammer against his ribs. He wanted to kiss her, to erase the fear and the pain with that one act, but he couldn't. It would betray his promise. It would put her in more danger. Footsteps echoed. One of Reaper's lieutenants, a man named Mark, rounded the corner. He saw them close together, hands clasped. "Hey," Mark barked. "Prospect, you know the rules, no contact. Get back to work. You girl upstairs now." Stella stood, fire in her eyes. "His name is Marcus, and he's not your dog." Mark took a step forward, grinning. "He's whatever Reaper says he is, and you're just a pretty package we're storing. Now move." Marcus was on his feet in an instant, stepping between Mark and Stella. He didn't say a word. He just stared at Mark, his body a wall of silent threat. The message was clear: touch her, and the deal is off, and I will kill you. Mark saw the deadly intent in Marcus's eyes. He backed down, sneering. "Fine, Reaper wants to see you anyway, Prospect, in his office. Now." Reaper's office was lined with books and maps. He was studying a layout of the city. He didn't look up as Marcus entered, still in his dirty clothes. "Your girl has spirit," Reaper said. "She's not my girl like that," Marcus said, the lie tasting bitter. Reaper finally looked at him. Aren't you? Doesn't matter. The Lucianos have surrounded your old clubhouse. They haven't attacked yet. They're negotiating with your man, Paul. They don't believe she's here. They think it's a trick. What are you going to do? Marcus asked. I'm going to prove it, Reaper said, a cold smile on his face. We're going to throw a party, a very public party, and your Elena is going to be the guest of honor. The party was a calculated show of force. Reaper sent out invitations to every connected group in the city, independent truckers, bar owners, even a few corrupt city councilmen. The message was clear. The Lakeside Angels were not hiding. They were throwing a barbecue in their own compound, out in the open yard by the lake. Stella was ordered to attend. Reaper's wife, a stern but kind woman named Rita, brought her a simple dress. You need to look presentable, but not like a prisoner, Rita said. Smile, act normal, like you belong here. I don't belong here, Stella said, her voice hollow. Tonight you do, Rita replied, fixing Stella's hair. It's for your protection, and for Marcus. That got Stella's attention. She dressed, her heart a frantic drum in her chest. Downstairs, the yard was strung with lights. Music played, men grilled meat and drank beer, but the mood wasn't festive, it was tense. Every man was armed. Lookouts were posted on the high walls. Marcus was forced to serve drinks, moving through the crowd with a tray, his head down. Seeing him like that, in the middle of this dangerous charade, was worse for Stella than seeing him scrub floors. She stood near Reaper, who held a beer and laughed too loud, his eyes constantly scanning the perimeter. He put a heavy, fatherly arm around Stella's shoulders, pulling her close. It was a display. See, she's with us, she's safe. Across the yard, Marcus watched Reaper's hand on Stella's shoulder. A possessive rage burned in his gut, hot and wild. He had to clench the tray to keep his hands from shaking. Then the guests Reaper was really waiting for arrived. Not by the front gate. 2 black sedans pulled up silently on the service road outside the high fence. The windows were tinted. They didn't get out. Reaper's smile didn't falter. He gave Stella's shoulder a slight squeeze, then let go and walked casually toward the fence, stopping about 20 feet from the cars. A few of his top men, including Mark, drifted into position behind him. The rear window of the lead sedan rolled down halfway. Stella could see the profile of an old man, pale and gaunt, with a shock of white hair. Antonio Luciano. Reaper called out, his voice carrying over the music, which had suddenly been turned down. Antonio, you're late for the hot dogs. Come on in, we've got plenty. A younger, harder-looking man got out of the passenger seat. He was Luciano's underboss. We're not here for a party, Reaper. You have something that belongs to Mr. Luciano. Reaper spread his hands. All I see is my club and our guest of honor, my niece, Elena. He turned and waved Stella over. Come say hello to your grandfather, sweetheart. Stella felt every eye on her. She walked forward on legs made of wood, stopping beside Reaper. She looked at the man in the car, her grandfather, the monster her parents had sacrificed everything to save her from. She felt nothing but cold fear. The old man's eyes, dark and sharp, locked onto hers. He studied her face, her posture. He saw her mother in her. A flicker of emotion, triumph, maybe greed, passed over his face. Elena, he said, his voice like dry paper. Come home. She is home, Reaper said, his voice losing all its fake cheer. She's under my protection. You want to renegotiate that, you know the price. A war you can't afford, old man, not in your state. Luciano's underboss took a step forward. You think your little biker gang scares us? From the serving table, Marcus put his tray down. Slowly, he started walking across the yard. He didn't look at the Lucianos. He looked only at Stella. He walked right past Reaper, past his own men, and stopped directly in front of Stella, putting his back to the Lucianos, blocking their view of her completely. It was the most defiant, protective gesture he could make. He was a prospect in rags, standing against a crime lord. He said nothing. He just stood there, a human shield. The underboss laughed, an ugly sound. Is this your protection, Reaper, a washed-up errand boy? But old Luciano wasn't looking at Marcus. He was staring at Stella's face, visible over Marcus's shoulder. He saw the way she looked at Marcus, not with fear for herself, but with terror for him. It was the same look her mother had given her father all those years ago, a look of pure, selfless love. Luciano's triumphant expression cracked. He saw it then, the truth. The note, no one's child, hadn't just been to hide her from him, it had been to give her a chance at a different life. A life that had produced this, a young woman who inspired a hardened biker to throw away his life for her. She was not a Luciano. She would never be a Luciano. She was something else, something his world of money and blood could never create. A deep, weary cough rattled from the car. The old man closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, the fire was gone. Only emptiness remained. "Enough," Luciano whispered, but his underboss heard him. "Let her go." The underboss spun, shocked. "Sir, we have the numbers, we can." "I said let her go," Luciano snarled with a sudden burst of his old fury. "She is not mine, she never was." His eyes met Stella's one last time. There was no love there, only a bitter acceptance. "The debt is paid. The Rossi line is dead to me. Stay with your savior." He said the last word with utter disgust. The window rolled up. The underboss got back in the car, fuming. The sedans reversed smoothly and disappeared into the night. The silence in the yard was absolute. Then Reaper let out a long, slow breath. Well, that went better than expected. Stella didn't hear him. She was looking at Marcus's back, still tense, still shielding her. She reached out and touched it. "Marcus, they're gone." He turned around. The raw relief on his face was something she'd never seen before. Without thinking, she threw her arms around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. He held her tightly, his hands fisting in the fabric of her dress, his face in her hair. It was more than a hug. It was a claiming, a reunion. The world fell away. The club, the deal, the danger, none of it existed in that moment. Reaper cleared his throat loudly. The spell broke. Marcus let go, taking a step back, but his eyes never left Stella. "The threat is gone," Reaper announced to the yard. "The deal stands, 1 year grinder," but he looked at the two of them, at the electricity that still crackled in the air between them. "The terms are just. She is no longer a prisoner here. She can come and go. She can visit under supervision. And you prospect, you get your old room back upstairs, no more garage, but you still work for me. You still have no vote. Understood?" It was a mercy, a small one, but it was everything. Marcus nodded. Understood. The party, now that the real tension was gone, actually became a party. The music went back on. People laughed for real. Stella stayed by Marcus's side the whole night. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. Everything that needed to be said was in the way their shoulders touched, the way their hands kept finding each other's, fingers linking for a moment before letting go. Later, when the party was winding down, Stella went to her room. Marcus was sent to the small, plain room he'd been given, a step up from the Prospect hole, but still a cell. An hour later, there was a soft knock on his door. He opened it. Stella stood there, wrapped in a blanket from her bed. "I can't sleep," she said. He stepped back, letting her in. The room was tiny, just a bed and a chair. She sat on the edge of the bed. He stayed by the door. "He let me go," she whispered, still in shock. "My grandfather, he just let me go." "He saw you," Marcus said, his voice low. "He saw what you are, and he knew he could never have that." "What am I?" she asked, looking up at him, her eyes gleaming in the dim light. He took a step closer. "You're Stella, you're kind, and you're strong, and you're the only good thing I ever pulled out of the darkness." His voice was rough with emotion. "You're mine, and I am yours, in every way that matters." The air between them charged again, hotter and more urgent than ever before. The danger was past. The walls were gone. Stella stood up, the blanket falling from her shoulders. She stepped right into his space, so close he could feel her warmth. "Then stop acting like my father," she said, her voice trembling but clear, "and start acting like the man who just faced down the mafia for me." That was all the permission he needed. He closed the last inch between them, his hand coming up to cradle her jaw. His thumb stroked her cheek. He searched her eyes, looking for any doubt. He found only love and a fierce, waiting certainty. He kissed her. It was not a gentle kiss. It was 17 years of protection, of fear, of unspoken longing, all poured into one single searing connection. It was desperate and tender, claiming and yielding. Stella kissed him back with equal fire, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer, anchoring herself to the only constant in her turbulent life. When they finally broke apart, breathless, they rested their foreheads together. The world had narrowed to this room, to this moment. "The year," Stella breathed. "I don't want to wait a year." "We don't have to wait for anything," Marcus said, his lips brushing hers as he spoke. "But we do this right. When this year is over, I'm taking you home, our home, and I'm building a life with you, a real one, outside the clubhouse, if that's what you want." "I just want you," she said simply. He kissed her again, softer this time. Then, with a strength of will that cost him dearly, he stepped back. He picked up the blanket and wrapped it around her again. "You should go back to your room, now, before this goes too far to stop." She understood. He was protecting her still, protecting this fragile new thing between them. He was making sure it was built on more than just adrenaline and gratitude. She nodded, her heart full. "Okay," she whispered. At the door she turned. "I love you, Marcus." He smiled, a real, full smile that transformed his weary face. "I've loved you since I pulled you out of the snow, Stella. I just didn't know what to call it." She left, the memory of his kiss burning on her lips. The year passed. It was not easy. Marcus worked hard for Reaper, earning a grudging respect. He and Stella were careful, stealing moments when they could, long talks by the lake, secret touches in hallways, kisses stolen in empty rooms. Their love grew quietly but fiercely, a solid foundation being built stone by stone. The Lucianos never returned. Old Antonio Luciano died 3 months later. With him, the hunt for Elena Rossi died forever. On the day Marcus's year of service ended, Reaper called him into the office. Marcus wore his old clothes, but not his cut. That was back at his own clubhouse, waiting. "Your time up," Reaper said. "Your club is waiting for you." They held their ground, they're stronger for it. "Thank you," Marcus said, meaning it, "for keeping your word." Reaper waved a hand. "You kept yours. You've got a good woman, don't be an idiot and lose her." He slid a set of keys across the desk. "Take my truck. She's packed and waiting outside." Marcus found Stella by the big truck, a single bag at her feet. She was wearing jeans and a leather jacket, not club colors, but her own. She smiled when she saw him, that smile that had always been his light. They drove in silence for a while, holding hands over the console. When they pulled up to his old clubhouse, it looked different, cleaner. The fence was repaired. Paul, David, and all the others were standing outside, waiting, and hanging from a post by the door was Marcus's cut, clean and mended. Paul stepped forward, holding it. "Welcome home, President." Marcus looked at him, surprised. They'd voted. In his absence, they'd made him president. He took the cut, the leather heavy and familiar in his hands. Then he looked at Stella. She nodded, her eyes shining. He didn't put it on. Instead, he slung it over his shoulder. He put his arm around Stella and pulled her close. "I'm home," he said, and he didn't just mean the clubhouse. He meant the life he was about to start with her by his side, finally free from the shadows of the past. They walked inside together, ready to face whatever came next, not as a biker and his foundling, but as partners, as equals, in love. Thank you for watching. What would you have done if you found a baby in the snow? Could you walk away? Subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your city might just be the next story location.